Hi everyone, this is Lindsay. I'm one of the reference librarians for Radnor Memorial Library, and today I want to talk to you about Stephen King's If It Bleeds. It's his new short story anthology. It just came out a few weeks ago, and I want to start by saying that I'm a huge Stephen King fan, probably since I was definitely too young to be reading Stephen King. So I've read a majority of his stuff, but I really like the short story anthologies he puts out because we got Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me from we got both of those movies from short stories that he wrote, and not a lot of people seem to know that. So um, I love the short stories, like I said, and I had a lot of high hopes going into this, but unfortunately, that's not how I ended up feeling after I was finished reading the book. So there are 4 short stories in this book. The first one is Mr. Harrigan's Phone, and that's a modern take on an old fear. And it's written really, really well. Really, really incredibly well, but it's not so much of an ending, really. It was a little disappointing for me. The second story, again, extremely well written, but also kind of strange even for Stephen King. It's more sci-fi than anything else. And it's 3-part story told in reverse, and the opening story is just not totally sure what's going on, and then the 2 stories following that, going back, were great, like standalone stories. They would have been perfect standalone wise. But it just didn't really connect for me. So I'm going to skip the 3rd and go straight to the 4th because the 3rd has kind of a disclaimer on it. The 4th story was called Rat, and that was actually my favorite because it's pretty much every Stephen King, trope thrown into about 80 pages or so. And it's typical Stephen King, very classic Stephen King, very dark fairy tale, dark humor kind of situation. And that's something I enjoyed a lot. I would have read a novel based on that story. So, unfortunately, that was kind of really the only one I came out going, oh, this is great. Now, the 3rd story, which is the title story, If It Bleeds, is about a character that he has written about beforehand. And if you're unfamiliar with the End of Watch trilogy, also known as the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, the Bill Hodges trilogy, or the book The Outsider, which both of that series and that book were made into TV shows. So if you're familiar with either of those, and the books, you probably be familiar with Holly Gibney. She's the main character in this 3rd short story, and it's obvious that King really likes to write about her, and he has even answered that she's his favorite character that he's ever written in interviews. So, which is great because it shows how much he loves writing her. So, but if you're unfamiliar with any of those, then there's a good chance you're not really going to know what's going on in this short story. It's also a bit of a plot recycle, which is something that I was a little disappointed by. So, but some people may be happy to see her back. I mean, I personally like her. I think she's a great character, and I thought this was kind of a nice vignette for her. Unfortunately, I didn't like that it was sort of like a redo of another story. So, all of that being said, I wouldn't really recommend this as something to start with if you're looking for like a Stephen King short story series, because it's not typical Stephen King. It's pretty fast, pretty easy read. It's not graphic at all, generally speaking, from what I can remember. It's more based about like slice of life people sort of thing, which is not really his forte. So that's kind of good for somebody who's looking for non-scary sort of, but slightly scary Stephen King kind of thing. Whereas I wouldn't recommend this if you want typical Stephen King. For those, I'd recommend Night Shift, which is one of his earlier ones. Different Seasons is my favorite. That's where we got the Shawshank Redemption from, and also Stand By Me. So those both came from that series. And also Everything's Eventual, which is my personal favorite, but it's a very unpopular opinion among Stephen King fans, because it's just kind of out there. But I actually loved it because I thought it was hysterical. So, hopefully you enjoyed this review, and I hope everyone is staying safe. Have a good rest of your week and a great weekend. See you next time.